Ever wondered if your depression, sadness, or unwanted behavior traits aren't actually coming from inside you, but have been passed on to you? Ever find yourself sabotaging what could have been good and you're not sure why? An example might be failed relationships, where each year you say to yourself, I really want to be in a relationship, I really want to find someone, but as each year passes, you either fail to find someone, or if you do get together with someone, it's not long before you break up. Let's say you unconsciously have this feeling, or I won't find the love of my life because my mother lost my father, and then later on also lost her second husband. So I might as well stay single just like her. Well, you're not aware of this feeling because it's unconscious, but it can massively impact your life in a negative way. And whether our ancestors were in a loving, wonderful relationship or were divorced or were just lonely, they are the examples in our lives of what we think it's normal. And that's why the old line is so popular: the apple never falls far from the tree. And that line makes complete sense to me, especially after studying transgenerational therapy and after seeing so many cases. We do tend to repeat what our parents did and what our ancestors did. And transgenerational healing is about healing by looking at your family tree, by looking at your ancestors. But why look at ancestors in order to heal yourself? Well, because you are a loyal being. You are a loyal being, and I cannot emphasize this enough. You're loyal to your ancestors, I'm also loyal to mine, and everyone else is loyal to theirs. And the craziest thing is that you are loyal without even realize you're being loyal, because it all happens at an unconscious level. And it's out of this loyalty that we ended up suffering from mental and physical illnesses, as well as limiting ourselves in life. And none of us come into this world with a blank slate, not even siblings who grew up in the same house with the same parents. They don't grow up to behave the same way. And it's true, a large part of this is down to environment, experiences. But have you ever seen how one child can grow up to be extremely successful? Work goes well, relationship goes well, yet the brother, who had exactly the same benefits, feels so depressed that he commits suicide? See, this is where transgenerational healing comes in, and it's not commonplace here in England yet, but this form of therapy is widely used in Brazil and also in Germany, where it comes from. And its original name is Familienaufstellung, which was later translated to Family Constellation, which can be a misleading name because a lot of people think it's to do with stargazing and horoscopes, but its actual translation is family positioning or family placement. And its positioning placement technique is used to identify systemic entanglements between family members. But what's an entanglement? Well, a person is entangled when this person unconsciously takes over the fate of an earlier member of the family and lives that person's fate, sometimes in a very similar way. And they're also bound together with deep, deep loyalty. So we now show a case as an example of how entanglement works in a family system. So the client here comes to a transgenerational healing workshop, and the client's issue is that she complains she's got OCD, that she washes herself and her hands constantly, and she says she tried everything out there to minimize her symptoms and also to understand what causes her to do that, but she hasn't got an answer for it. So after some questions to the client said that after the war, her father's sister had turned to prostitution in order to earn some money and help the family. And although she massively helped to the well-being of the family, she ended up contracting syphilis, and the entire family rejected her, and she ended up dying alone. So as soon as the facilitator heard about this exclusion in her family system, the facilitator brought this auntie into the constellation. And as soon as this auntie stepped into the constellation, the client's representative straight away noticed her and couldn't take her eyes off her. She was the only one to notice this auntie, the only one to look at this exclusion. No one else in the family was looking at her. So in this constellation, it later emerged that this client is actually identified with this auntie. And what's an identification? Well, an identification happened here because the client is maintaining the memory of the excluded auntie by representing her presence and energy in the family system. So the client here is not fully herself because she feels her auntie's feeling like hers. And one interesting thing here is that the client, in order to bring justice back into the family system, she tries to recreate the past in a similar way. And how she does that? Well, in a way, she feels dirty, which was probably what her auntie felt when she contracted syphilis and saw the entire family rejecting her. And also, at the beginning of the constellation, the client mentioned that she started to isolate herself because of her condition. She's ashamed of her condition, her OCD. So, out of loyalty, this client thinks unconsciously like this: Auntie, you felt dirty. I also feel dirty. Auntie, you had to isolate yourself because of your disease. I will also isolate myself because of my disease. And this is all without knowing this auntie. She never met this auntie. When this client was born, the auntie was already dead. And the client here, without realizing that this exclusion in her family system is affecting her and that she's actually entangled with her auntie, will be much harder for her to find a resolution for her problem and to understand why she behaves this way. Now you must be asking yourself, why is the client suffering from OCD if she wasn't the one who rejected this auntie? Who actually rejected her was someone from her previous generation. She's got nothing to do with that. Yes, I know it's unfair, but this is to do with something called the conscious of the family group, and it can affect one member or more members in a family system. So if one of the family members has been unjustly treated, the group conscious will demand things to be even up, and someone from a later generation will be kind of chosen by this group conscious to take up the role of that person that has suffered injustice, just like we saw here with the OCD case. And what was found in this work is that the family conscious has no greater urge or desire to maintain whole. And the family system will do whatever it needs to bring the excluded person back in the system in order to maintain whole. And this has something to do with a basic systemic order in family constellation, and also the most important one, which is that every member of the family has an equal right to belong to the system. And how can we actually know if an excluded person in our family is having an effect on us, or if we're having an unhealthy loyalty towards someone? That's when transgenerational healing comes in. And what it does in simple terms, it looks for entanglements to see if they're having any unconscious impact in your life. And once discovered, we bring this hidden dynamic to light so you can then become conscious of it. And it's much easier to become conscious of it in a constellation because it's visible right in front of you with the representatives representing your family members. And it's amazing how well they can represent them. So family members who have been excluded, they can finally be given a name, a place, and their existence is acknowledged through statements and gestures of honor. And it's a beautiful thing to see and also extremely healing to your family system. So for instance, in the previous case, the client is sick because of its loyalty to the excluded auntie. So she developed OCD, she feels dirty just like her auntie, and in a very distorted way, she unconsciously thinks this way: auntie, I'm closer to you. But if I'm loyal to someone, what does it get me? To actually be closer to this person. And you're trying to compensate for an injustice done in the past by either restricting yourself in life or becoming ill is an illusion. It doesn't help anyone in the family system. And unfortunately, similar patterns will just repeat in the next generation. And the best way for this client to honor her auntie, the excluded auntie, is by actually living her life fully. And one of the sentences used in family constellation would be, dear auntie, I honor your fate and I leave your fate with you. And she would honor her aunt's fate with a bow. And this image will continue to have an impact in the client's life and it will massively contribute to her healing. So the foundation of this work is How can we free ourselves from the limits of our family? Well, in a way, we can regain our freedom and put an end to unconscious transgenerational repetition by first understand what happened in our family of origin. Second, become conscious of any entanglements that might be affecting us. And third, realizing and understanding that we are not honoring anyone in our family by limiting ourselves or even becoming ill. We're not honoring anyone by doing that. We can only honor someone by living our life fully. Otherwise, all the suffering that our ancestors went through was in vain. And that's not what they want for us. What our ancestors want is to see us thriving in life and doing well in life. And this is a new way of modeling those strong loyalty bonds that we have with family members. So we can finally live our lives the way we desire to be. So my question to you right now is, can you say to your ancestors, please bless me if I have the courage to thrive and to have more than you? Or let's say with the previous example I gave at the beginning, where your mother lost your father and then later on also lost her second husband, are you able to say to your mother, please bless me if I find the love of my life? How does your body feel when you say that? It's important for you to think about that in order to avoid the traps of unconscious transgenerational repetitions. So in this video, I briefly explain about transgenerational therapy and the trauma that's passed from generation to generation. And I know there is a lot more to talk about in Family Constellations. So if you found this video useful, please leave a comment below, and I will be trying to make more videos in the future about transgenerational therapy and about family constellation, and I'll be also bringing some interesting cases as well. So please stay tuned, and thanks for watching.